This is Mark. We're going to talk about methods to get a depreciation import file. There's two methods. The first is every time a depreciation schedule is submitted to KMAR for processing, the import file is generated automatically and placed in a folder on your share. That folder is under each individual economist. It's a depreciation folder. There's a KMAR or a KDS, DEPR, Lacerte, and then a year, and then the depreciation import files. Now, these import files that are generated automatically through when a schedule is processed by default do not include any 8824 information or any like-kind exchange information. So none of your trade dispositions will show up in the disposition detail in Lacerte. It does by default include data to make the depreciation adjustments on balance sheets for entities. And I'll show you a little bit more about what that is in a little bit. The one thing that you need to keep in mind with those files that are generated automatically, the structure of those files is based on the entity type. So, and we select that entity type from analysis system. So if the entity is incorrectly selected in analysis, then the structure of the file that's automatically created will be incorrect. And I'll show you a method to correct that. So that's the first way to get that depreciation import file is to look in your share and to find that depreciation folder, the DEPR Lacerte folder, and track down the file you're looking for that way. If you're using a network version of Lacerte, you should be able to just go directly from Lacerte, look in your share, and pull that file in. If you're using a non-networked version of Lacerte, Lacerte doesn't allow you to connect to or read data from a mapped drive. So if you have a non-network version of Lacerte, you need to copy that file from your share and save it someplace on your hard drive on your computer. The second method to get that depreciation export file is through depreciation system. Before I get into that export or creating that file, I want to talk real quick about some options. So let's go to Tools and Customize. Brings up the Customize window, and the last three options are what we're going to focus on for setting defaults for that export file created from the depreciation system. These options have no impact on the file that's created automatically when a depreciation schedule is processed. So our first option is to change the directory that the export file is sent to. When the system is installed, the default is a depreciation folder on your C drive with a subfolder called Export Lacerte. You may want to map that to a server if you have a server in your office. Otherwise, it's your choice on where that file goes. The second option defines what the export file looks like by default. Now, you do have any of these options, you have the option of changing those again once you export a file. This setting only defines what the default setting is. So we can select yes or no. We want to include the 8824 data, the like-kind exchange data, into the export, and we can select yes or no to including the balance sheet adjustments for entities. For an individual, this last option is not going to make any difference. Once you've got those adjusted where you'd like, click Save. And then to actually create the export file, go to Exports and Export to Lacerte. We see these same three options that I just mentioned. If you change that directory, then whatever you had changed it to will show up here. And you still have the option of changing to a different directory if you'd like. You have the option of saying yes or no to like-kind exchange information, and yes or no to the balance sheet adjustments for an entity. I mentioned before, if the entity type in analysis in the analysis system is not correct, you'd have the option to change that. Well, here's that choice. So if I know that this farm is identified in analysis as a single owner or a sole proprietor, but in fact it should be an S corp, then I have the option to change that here. And again, that does impact the file structure and the mapping that Lacerte reads. So let's change this back to single owner and go ahead and click on Export. Once the export's created, that window disappears, and you're now ready to browse to that directory and import into Lacerte.